Hello to all. We are IC, Agência de Iniciativas Cidadãs, and we are delighted to be participating in the 2023 Livable Cities Conference. Today, we are presenting a paper called Democratizing Communication for the Empowerment of Peripheral Communities in Their Struggle for the Right to the City. This is a paper written by Rafaela Lima, Emanuela São Pedro, Raíssa Faria e Natália Vargens. AIC, Agência de Iniciativas Cidadãs, or Agency for Citizen Initiatives, is a Brazilian non-governmental organization that runs the AIC Lab, formally since 2006, a space for methodological creation and strengthening of civil society entities and movements in the promotion of rights by bolstering social mobilization processes. The lab is dedicated to making communication and other strategies for institutional sustainability a possible reality for civil society groups, collectives, and networks. It develops and offers, free of charge, tools for building communication strategies by popular movements that fight for the right to the city denied to poor populations. In 2009, the UFMG Public Relations course of the Federal University of Minas Gerais, established a partnership with the project, which also became a teaching, research, and extension laboratory, an experience that in 13 years has already trained more than 500 students. With regards to the results generated, we highlight that the AIC Lab accounts for more than 600 free support initiatives to collectives and civil society movements, with a total coverage of more than 60,000 people. It has also generated more than $2.5 million in direct resources for the groups served. From instrument to bond, let's discuss some principles. In 2009, the communication service to socio-cultural groups was expanded to include diagnosis and communication planning. It was at first permeated by the instrumental perspective, applying traditional organization communication methods. This mode provided for the technical mastery of specialized knowledge, which was outside the universe of popular groups. We had as a reference important Brazilian studies in the field of communication for social mobilization that associate everyday interactions and the creation of bonds between audiences, enabling processes of social mobilization for the promotion of broader causes. In search of a method that could account for the ideal of dialogic communication in the practice of communication planning. In 2011, AIC and UFMG built a methodology in a permanent process of reinvention. This construction involves communication concept and principles for social mobilization linked to UFMG research, methods for dialogue facilitation developed by AIC throughout its history, participatory diagnostic tools used by social movements for decades and adapted to the context of the AIC lab and by the AIC team, and we follow with the results. Communication planning methodology. We quote: For many years, we considered that communication was synonymous with creating informational and dissemination materials. But today we know that communication, to be strategic, is much broader. It has to do with looking at our audiences and the relationships we have with them and the thinking about how to strengthen those relationships. This quote is a testimony by João Henrique de Azevedo Xavier, a member of the Aroeira Group, Belo Horizonte Collective of Urban Agroecology. We have invested in the development of our own methodology based on participatory and collaborative processes for communication planning in the context of popular groups. The methodology is directed to the public and to the relationships. We follow with a brief description of these methodological steps. Step 1: Partnership agreement and methodological alignment. In this step, we introduce the team and group members. The group describes itself, its history, its ideals, its understanding of communication, and what has already been done about this. AIC then presents key concepts such as social mobilization, public interest cause, mapping, and classification of audiences. Then we reflect on the cause. The group is led to reflect and state its cause, which is what moves it in its actions. Then we follow to audience mapping. We list audience and classification according to links they have with the group and with the mobilizing cause. The discussions are all recorded in a spreadsheet. Audience mapping involves strengthening bonds with the audience, which is a central action for social mobilization. Therefore, in this phase, these bonds are described and complexified. Initially, audiences are classified as generators, those who enable the group's existence, legitimizers, and beneficiaries. Then we use the Venn diagram, one of the collaborative rural diagnosis diagrams, to represent them. This diagram consists of a central circle, is named after the group and its cause. Each audience in this diagram is represented by circles, which orbit around the group and the cause. The color of the circles indicates whether the public generates, legitimizes, or benefits. The size of the circles indicates the importance for the collective in view of its strategic horizon. The distance between circles informs the distance of relationships. Let's have a look. So this is vacuuming audience map, and this is the Venn diagram been applied. As you can see, we've got in here beneficiaries, legitimizers, and generators from high to low relevance. Step 4 for communication planning, we've got strategic guidelines and action plan. The records kept will reveal the most diverse challenges in the collective's relationship with their audiences. Some are very specific, relating to the nature of each public, but most of them are transversal. The next step is to systematize the most relevant cross-cutting issues. For this, the group NAIC summarized the discussion in major challenges set in a framework of strategic axes and actions. The main problematic issues are pointed out and the main solution trends are outlined by the group. As a culmination process, the team prepares a document that brings together the diagnosis and the communication action plan. Let's see the dialogue tools for institutional development. Our work combines actions in the field of communication with support for groups in other dimensions of their institutional development. We adopted Domingo Armani perspective on institutional development, which refers to systematic efforts to strengthen the capacity of an organization to play a leading role in the process of social change. Is a concept of sustainability for NGOs that is not restricted to financial conditions for carrying out that mission. It considers aspects of a strictly financial nature, such as the volume of income, diversity of sources of funds, and etc., but also encompasses countless other factors that affect institutional life, such as the degree of involvement and participation of members, understanding the political role played by the institution in society, transparency and accountability practices, the quality of the work performed, the existence of a planning, monitoring, and evaluation system, and the ability to produce knowledge. In this systemic perspective, partnerships, exchanges, credibility, and networking knowledge are some examples of aspects that are important to the sustainability of any group or organization. It is vital to mobilize to set in motion this type of resource. For all these reasons, the IIC Lab, in addition to being a partner of groups in communication planning and in the development of strategies, actions, and communicative productions, also includes in its sections other dimensions of institutional development. It promotes, together with the groups, practical training processes related to strategic planning, resource mobilization planning, elaboration of projects for public and private funding calls for financing social and cultural actions, project implementation management, financial management and financial accountability, NGO formalization, obtaining qualifications necessary for partnerships and tax incentives, such as enrollment in rights councils and public incentive systems. The AIC team shares lessons learned throughout its history in dealing with challenges related to institutional survival and development. There is a specific way of doing of all these things, from open, non-prescriptive propositions in which participants elaborate about what they learn. In the propositions that trigger and organize each process carried out, AIC Lab uses as a role procedures and materials created with the specific purpose of fostering and mediating interactions that generate collective knowledge. This mixture of processes and mediating materials is called dialogue tools. Let's see a few examples of dialogue tools. This is the affective map or spoken map that you can see in the picture. They are a collaborative diagnostic tool for territories. It brings records of a territory that are made from drawing, collage, embroidery, among other creative possibilities, in addition to notes or phrases about significant aspects, perceptions, experiences, and emotions. It raises reflections and dialogues around individual and collective meanings attributed to spaces and the relationships between the subjects who inhabit them. As you can see in here, we've got activity on community mobilization with social cultural group initiatives in Belo Horizonte in 2016. The next picture is about collaborative design. All members of a given group engage in the design of perceptions, ideas, images, and proposals for actions. In here, we've got pictures of participatory and collaborative design of guidelines for the renovation and revitalization of the Leonardo Ferreira Franco Community Nursery in Santa Luzia, Minas Gerais. We've got graphic facilitation, which is a visual systematization of ideas, information, and flows with the purpose of recording and synthesizing discussions that took place or to highlight issues that need to be discussed and to guide the steps of a conversation. We see in the picture here diagnosis carried out with a group of founders of the Instituto Transformação. Finally, we've got memory sharing is a reflection process around memory in a life storytelling circle. Our final remarks, then, we move now, is that our bet is that collaborative processes generate learning for everyone involved, pave the way for appropriation of actions, languages, and technologies, enable collective problematizations around elements that underpin social mobilization, such as the shared understanding of the common cause that gives meaning to the group, the context of the audience involved in a cause, the dialogues and bonds necessary for action in favor of the desired social transformation. It is worth highlighting the use of the word collaboration instead of cooperation. Cooperation refers to a joint activity, a joint action where each one does their part so that the group reaches the expected result. Collaboration implies subject engagement throughout the creation of a project or the construction of a solution. There is co responsibility in the entire process from the definition of the objective to be achieved. We believe that collaborative processes are essential for the very survival of collectives and groups. It is in the reciprocal exchanges and adaptations of everyday interactions that groups generate conditions for their existence. Therefore, we believe that participating in the collaborative processes of planning and construction of communication proposed by the AIC Lab opens up perspectives for increasing the cognitive dimension of social mobilization. It creates, for the collective involved, an opportunity to perceive itself as an audience in mobilizing movement in a process of self formation and self affirmation. From the awareness of oneself as an audience that constitutes, moves, and affirms itself in the interaction with other publics, it becomes possible to build a continuous process of reflection and action, both feeding each other in the context of interactions. This process enables an action in congruence with the context to be continuously engendered and thus puts together the necessary conditions for the group's perpetuity. The collaborative experiences undertaken are rich in significant learning, which subjects build their own possibilities of action in the field of organizational communication. The possibility of autonomy emerges to make their own choices and build their own unique path. In each communication planning process, AIC proposes to participants an exercise in perception and imagination, awareness of the context, and projection of their cause in public. The exercise of thinking, acting as an audience, attentive to the dynamics of interactions in this context of mobilization, generates for the group an expanded reflection on the ways in which it organizes and acts. Ergo, it opens up possibilities for the search for better ways of acting and organizing itself. Due to this collaborative dynamic that generates a continuous process of learning and enhancing actions for all those involved, we believe that the processes of planning and building communication strategies promoted by the AIC Lab can be effectively incorporated by the groups and taken into daily practice. Thus, as these processes become an increasingly collaborative action, reflection, and action, they expand their solidity and power, assuming a formative and organizing role that strengthens the group's collective experience. We really appreciate the opportunity of speaking with you. Thank you very much. Please go check AIC social media and our online presence. We've got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel, and please have a look at our website, aic.org.br. Thank you very much.